Do you have a side hustle or another part-time job that you want to think about getting approved for your loan application? You can, but there are certain guidelines that need to be followed. In most loan programs, including Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA and VA, and USDA, you can count your second job income. What happens is that the biggest issue that most people don't understand is you have to work both jobs for at least 2 years. That means your main job and your second job or your side hustle both concurrently for 2 years. So that means you work for the government or you work for a plant and then you do DoorDash or something on the side, or you work at a grocery store or some small business on the side. That means you have to work both of those jobs for at least 2 years before you can use both of those incomes. You also need to prove that the income is most likely to continue. So we're gonna have to confirm with your employer that, hey, yes, both jobs you're likely to continue. You're not going to get laid off, or it's not seasonal work. They don't know if they're going to have work for you. They have to be able to let us know that you're actually going to have work on that job as long as you want to be there. And we need to verify with pay stubs. So if your second job is something that's cash or under the table, it most likely will not be able to be counted unless you reported it on your tax returns for the last 2 years. And then that would also require an up-to-date profit and loss statement. The other thing is you can't have major gaps between your jobs. So, like if you had a job and you started these jobs, or you had on your main job, you've been there for 5 years, but you have multiple second jobs over the last 2 year period, we can't count that. We can't count it as qualifying income. It does work for you, and you still want to get it documented as a compensating factor for your loan, because sometimes that could be what puts you over the hump. You could be using that job you could be just working it to save up for the down payment or to pay off some additional debts. But again, so if you have proof that you've been working both those jobs for 2 years, same time, and it's been a 2 year history, then as long as you before 2 years before you close, you're good to go. When you cannot use it is if it's less than a 2 year history, you picked up a few jobs a month ago, or you just did it right before loan application, they're not going to count it. Same thing if you're like on Social Security and you say, oh, I'm going to go get a job so I can afford more homes, or you're on disability or more of a home, they're going to make sure that you're receiving Social Security or disability for at least for 2 years and working a job for at least 2 years, even though it may just be a part-time job. So that doesn't work. It helps as far as your compensating factors, but it won't count as income. Inconsistent or declining income. So if you're on a job and say you work for a staffing company, and you've been with that staffing company for 2 years, but it looks like you're not working as many hours, or you have that second job and your hours are declining, the underwriter may exclude it because it doesn't look like you're actually working it, as vigorously as you were before. Temporary or probational work, short-term contracts, that doesn't really work. So like if you have short-term contracts and you're like, okay, I always have a regular job, then I have a contract here, that won't work either unless it's something that's in your industry, and you may have to get some type of credit exception, or underwriting conception for that or anything like that. And then just overtime disguised as a second job, like a lot of people that have overtime and it's with the same company doing something else, then they're just going to treat it as overtime, which has its own rules. Basically, it's actually easier if it's overtime because it's 12 months. You have to have a history of 12 months of receiving it and just proof that you're going to receive it. So just a tip on that. So if you're using your second job, we're not saying quit it, but you won't be able to use it, especially if you need that income to qualify, unless you've been on both jobs for 2 years. So it actually improves your financial history, and it'll help you with your savings, your reserves, and your overall financial profile, which will improve your approval odds. But even if we can't count it, you still want to let us document it so that it works as a compensating factor from you, and we know how you're saving up money. So if you're juggling two income streams or multiple income streams, and you want to know what we can count, don't guess on it. Just let us work with you and get you approved. If you got any questions, give me a call 404-461-3172 or reggieloans.com. Bye.